Okay, welcome everyone. I am Marianne Least. I am the Chief Operating Officer here at HARC. Welcome to the second in our series of family education information series. So we are titling these sessions, we're calling it Empowered Together. So we hope that you will join us for more of these in the future. We are very happy to have Stuart Hawkins here today, who is going to talk to us about ABLE accounts.
Okay, you guys bear with me as I do a repeat of what I just talked about.
Sometimes repetition is good, you know.
Just make sure that they hear you now.
Hear me?
I'm going to share the screen, and hopefully this will work this time. And I'm going to go.
So
I'm going to exit that. And then
Okay.
Can they still
Okay.
hear us?
yeah, I can. Yeah, I
Believe
can
we're-
hear.
Beautiful. I
Thumbs
think it
up.
works. Okay, so again, my name's Stuart Hawkins, and first and foremost, I want to let you all know that I am a parent of a young adult with special needs. My motivation and inspiration is my daughter Kelsey. At 6 weeks old, Kelsey was diagnosed with hydrocephalus, which is fluid on the brain. And at 3 years old, we discovered why she had fluid on the brain, and there was a growth on her brain stem, a brain tumor. A year and a half of chemo, 24 surgeries later, Kelsey has a brain injury. So I've lived the school system onto Transition Academy all the way into adulthood and part-time employment. And that is why I do this type of work. I am a financial advisor, have been for 30 years. In the last 15 or so, I've really focused what I do on working with families just because of my own life's journey. So, did you do that?
Nope.
So anyway, I don't know why it went to the next slide, but I have securities licenses, so I'm told I have to have things like this. The screen, and this is educational. It's not meant to be any specific advice. I'd be happy to give specific advice to anybody out there that would like it. So with that said, we'll hop right in. And by the way, if there are any questions, just unmute yourself and ask. I will stop occasionally to see if there are any questions. So, ABLE, Achieving a Better Life Experience. It was passed in 2014. And if you look at those numbers of how many senators in Congress people voted for this, it's quite different from today. Very bipartisan bill. In 2016, the first accounts went live in Ohio with Ohio's program called Stable. My daughter, I set one up. She was probably one of the first couple hundred in the country. Connecticut did not have one for a long time. And that was a bit of confusion. People are like, well, Connecticut doesn't have one. Well, guess what? You can use any states. I shouldn't say any. Certain states don't allow you to use theirs, like New York, Florida, you have to be a resident. But there are many states that allow you to, outside residents, to use. And like I said, in October 2020, Connecticut launched theirs. They did not set up their own. They joined the ABLE National Alliance, a consortium of other states. So just so you know, if you're dealing with Connecticut ABLE, you're probably going to be talking to somebody in Kansas City, Missouri. Not that there's anything wrong with Kansas City. Nobody here in the state that's going to really have much to do with this. Oops. Okay, so why was there a need for ABLE? So many of us know, now there's some caveats to these numbers, but in Connecticut, in order to protect means tested government benefits, you can't have more than $1,600 in somebody's name for Medicaid, any DES services, $2,000 for SSI. Now, there is something called MedConnect, Medicaid for the working disabled, that allows you to have more money, but this is the base number that we look to. So now with ABLE, we're able to save money where we weren't able to before, because of those very low numbers. The ABLE accounts tended to supplement, not supplant, government benefits that the individual is eligible for. So that is the reason that Congress passed the ABLE account, for the ability for somebody to actually save a little bit of money for the future rather than continuously being impoverished in order to maintain government benefits. And I am
Yeah.
you just hit the button and see if it goes. It's weird. There we go. Is that the next slide? Can you go back one and make sure? Yeah, okay, beautiful.
So forward.
Yep, that's it. Who's eligible?
Esther Merrick.
Is there a question or?
No, I think just letting us know she's here.
Oh,
No, I'm just trying to join the meeting. I have problems.
Okay, so who's eligible? Right now, the onset date has to be prior to age 26. So once you hit 26, you're not eligible. But they have made changes over the years to the ABLE program, and it is being changed to 46 in 2026. So next year it goes to 46. So that it was actually in the original legislation, but to get it pushed through, they brought it back down to 26. Now they've made the change, it's going up to 46. If you are eligible to receive SSI or SSDI, you are automatically eligible for an ABLE account. You can also have SSA, Social Security's list of compassionate allowance. And then there's the self-certification, which many folks do. Anybody who has a minor child that hasn't been in the SSI, SSDI system, you can do a disability certification where you're self-certifying that the individual has severe marked functional limitations, the same definition that Social Security uses. You need to have a doctor certify that. You do not, however, have to have that letter to open the account. You just need to make sure that you can get, if they're not on SSI or SSDI. So that essentially is a minor child for the most part. So again, you don't need to submit that letter to open it. So anybody can open one of these. Are there any questions yet?
Sorry,
Okay.
I can see
I
everything.
cursor.
See them.
So the contribution rules. When these first started, it was $14,000. It is now $19,000. How do they go? What is that tied to? It's tied to the IRS Unified Gift Tax Exemption. That's the amount of money you can give away to somebody without having to file a gift tax return. So that will likely continue to go up. That's why it was 18 last year. It's 19 this year. If you work where there is no retirement plan offered, you can actually pay another put another $15,000 in. I don't know that there's a lot of people doing that, but you can. You can only have one account. Okay, so grandma and grandpa can't open an account, and then you go and open an account. It's the individual's account. They are the owner and the beneficiary. You can roll over money from one state to another, which is anybody who has one of these set up now. I'm going to talk about why you might want to do that. Once you hit $100,000 in the account, SSI, supplemental security income, is suspended. Once it goes down, that pops back up. We're not talking about SSDI. That's a different program. There are no limits for SSDI. You can roll money over from a 529 college savings plan. These are actually called 529A. They're modeled after 529 college savings plans, sponsored by states, tax advantages that I'm going to go into. So you can roll money over, still at the maximum of the $19,000 a year. So if somebody had saved money, or grandparents had saved money in a 529 and the individual's not going to go on to college, it can be rolled into an ABLE account. Just learned that they increased the maximum amount. Don't know if anybody's going to get there anytime soon, but I learned at our meeting that they increased it to $550,000. That's the number for 529 college savings plans, and so they mirror that.
That's the highest that you can roll over into the account.
That's the most you can have. Oh, look, David Schuster's calling in. That's you. That's you laughing, Donna. I hear that.
Yes, it is, Stu.
Second call while I've been here. He saw that I was doing this. Called me up today. So how is the account invested? Okay, we set one of these up. So very similar to a 529 college savings plan, if you're familiar with them, you choose how you want the money invested. From aggressive growth all the way down to a checking account, anywhere in between. So what the states do, just like the college savings plans, they go out to banks and investment companies and they provide those services to the ABLE plan. Again, any questions? So how are these things taxed? They're very tax favorable. Earnings on the account grow, income tax free, again, just like a college savings plan. Withdrawals for qualified disability expenses, quote unquote, are tax free. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. What is a qualified disability expense? Withdrawals for non-QDE is a 10% penalty, just like a college savings plan or taking money out of a retirement plan before 59 and a half. Same concept, just the gains, not the principal. So if you put 10,000 in and it grew to 12,000 and you took money out for something that's not allowed, and again, I'm going to talk about that, you would pay tax and penalty on the $2,000 growth. When you take money out, it does not count as income to the beneficiary. And more importantly, it doesn't reduce your income. So if somebody is bumping up against income limitation, this does not allow you to put money in it and say, I'm below that income level. Unfortunately, that'd be great if you could. As of fall of 2023, you can now get $5,000 state income tax deduction, $10,000 if you're filing a joint return for a contribution into one of these. Why did they do that? Because you get that under the Connecticut 529 college savings plan. So again, they are mirroring the benefits of that program. So how do we establish an account? It's pretty simple. If you have the individual social security number, date of birth, and all of those important things handy, they say you can do this in about 15 minutes. So it's not that difficult. It is all done online, however. Do not walk into a bank and say, I want to open up an ABLE account, because they will look at you like they don't know what you're talking about. So again, no brick and mortar locations. So you can fund with personal check, send a check off to the able provider, or you can set up electronic fund transfers. My daughter's is set up where every month money comes out of her checking account and goes into her able account. Now, who can establish the individual? If they have the capacity to do it, they can do it themselves. And then what they call an authorized legal representative, starting with a parent. So a parent can set one of these up, a sibling, grandparent, guardian, conservator, or somebody with power of attorney. That authorized legal representative has signature authority. So I do that for my daughter. I'm the one who makes the transfers of money and all of that. But the individual is always considered the owner and the beneficiary of the account. Unlike a 529 college savings plan where you can change beneficiaries, you as a parent or grandparent own it and can decide to change it. This is a little different. So what can we pay for out of an ABLE account? So qualified disability expenses. So the IRS has listed a bunch. From education, housing, transportation, employment training, assistive technology, health, prevention, wellness, all of these, funeral, all of these things can be paid out of an ABLE account. But the IRS did not want this to be limited to those specific things. So they have a little catch-all that says any expense as long as it can help maintain or improve the health and independence or quality of life. When these first came out, a big question was, well, can somebody save money for a vacation? And at first you had lawyers saying, well, no, that's not listed here. It doesn't say vacation. But I, for one, can make the argument, and it's pretty clear now if you call, that a trip to Disney World is promoting the health and wellness of the individual. A vacation does that. Now, what should you avoid? And I jokingly say this. The individual shouldn't buy their mother a fur coat for Christmas. That the individual, more real, shouldn't be taking somebody out to lunch, paying for the other person, because that is not for their benefit. Okay, vacation, they want to go on vacation, but they can't go alone. It could pay for somebody to go with them. But as long as it's pointed back to them, then you should be good to go. Now, I don't know if it's on another slide, but I'm going to say it now. You don't have to get approval for any of this. It's not like you have to call up and say, this is what I want to use the money for. You're only subject to an audit. So I think you can go forward.
All right, wasn't letting me.
Yeah. How do we withdraw funds? So you can withdraw online, withdrawal via ACH. So, or you can get a paper check. Funny story, personal story. I set one of these up for my daughter, and a year later, she needed a new laptop, and my wife told me, why don't you get the money out of the ABLE account? And I'm like, okay, I don't really know how to do this. So I go on, and had I known her checking account number, I could have just shot it right back into her checking account. But I didn't, and there was a button right next to it that says send a paper check. And that was easier for me than calling my wife back and getting the so I just hit that button, and a few days later, because my daughter's is set up in Ohio because they were the first and only, came in the mail from the state of Ohio Treasurer's Department. It said something like that. And we just took that, bought the computer, put the receipt for the computer in a file that says Able account, so that if we were ever audited, how did you use this money? She bought a computer with it. You can also have a debit card. I will load money on to a debit card for her, and she can use that on her own when she's going somewhere. And it keeps records of how she spent. And I'm not certain with Connecticut. I can't speak for Connecticut. But the Ohio one you can limit where money is spent. It's tied to, if anybody knows, the TrueLink card, which is pretty convenient. I have gotten emails that say she tried to buy something and it was a foreign, and they shut it down, said, nope. So that's good. So yeah, and you want to maintain all your records. So one of the original big problems with Able accounts, and in my opinion, saving a ton of money in one of these, is that there was Medicaid payback. But a little known change in the law in the fall of 2023, same time they added those state income tax deduction, they no longer require payback for a Connecticut Able account. So if you have an Able account that's not in Connecticut, at some point, you may want to move it to Connecticut. There is no payback for SSI or SSDI, only for Medicaid. And the one thing I used to tell folks, still do, is that you can pay for a funeral out of one of these. So if you don't have Connecticut today, if you get to the point where the account has more money than you'd pay for a funeral, I would probably highly recommend saying you should move the account to Connecticut. And by the way, when you roll the money over, you're not limited to the 19,000. The whole amount can come over. It's just going from one state plan to another state. So that's a really good benefit that the state has added here. There are several other states that did that. Pennsylvania did it originally, but you have to be a resident of that state. Able and SSI, in-kind support and maintenance. Some folks run into this problem where if someone or something like a special needs trust is paying for shelter, then SSI is reduced by 1/3. It is very clear that money coming out of an Able account to pay for shelter housing expenses does not trigger that reduction. So I have clients that actually take money out of special needs trust and pay rent and no deduction for this ISM that Social Security So give you another real life example. I have a client whose son with mental health issues was living in an apartment, never worked. So he's in his 20s. Because dad was paying for the apartment, his SSI was reduced by 1/3. Dad set up an Able account, put the money in the Able account, paid the landlord out of that, boom, went up. So it's a great tool for doing that.
Good.
Go on. You guys have any questions? Anybody? I'm doing a great job. Huh?
Can you hear me? My question is, I need to know more about the Able account. This is the first time I'm hearing about it. I'm Esther Merrick, and I have 2 kids with special needs.
Okay, well, I need to talk to you after. I don't know what you mean by more about the Able account. This is what we're talking about. So I can I'd be happy to after
Okay.
detail with you and talk
Okay.
about your specific situation. Okay, Able and Special Needs Trust. It is not an either or, it's both. You don't eliminate a special needs trust by using an Able account. And you don't necessarily negate the use of a special needs trust. Vice versa. It works both ways. Both of them have the same intent to protect government benefits and to provide quality of life for our loved ones today and in the future. In most cases, if you're looking at an ABLE account, you should have a special needs trust. Because when we pass away and money goes to our kids directly, that is going to cause problems with government benefits. So by doing planning ahead of time and setting up the legal structure so that our assets can pass to them without the government saying, hey, they have money, we don't have to do anything, makes sense. So I like to say ABLE's now midterm, short-term money. The special needs trust is generally unfunded while parents are alive. And when we pass away, that's when our money goes into the special needs trust. So ABLE now, short-term, midterm money, special needs trust, long-term money.
Sorry, it does not like when I move the mouse.
Okay, which plan to use? Well, you can go to ABLE National Resource Center.org, and they can give you a whole slew of information. They can show you all the different states, but I will tell you the three that I use or recommend using. My daughter's in Ohio. I have not moved it yet. There's not more money than I would pay for a funeral in there. So I don't see any pressing need to do that right now because I know how to navigate that and push the buttons on their website. And I'm not that sophisticated, so keep it simple. Connecticut, absolutely. That's what I tell all my clients. That's where I would go now if you're establishing one. The last one, Massachusetts. The reason I would recommend Massachusetts, if you're only going to put a small amount of money in, like birthday money or a couple $100, $500, Massachusetts doesn't have an annual fee. Connecticut and Ohio have, I think, $40. So if you put $200 in and it's $40, that's very expensive. Why does Massachusetts not have a fee, an annual fee? Because their expenses on the underlying investments are double what Connecticut and Ohio's are. So at a certain point of assets in the account, it's much more advisable to have money with Ohio or Connecticut. And so again, little money, Massachusetts. If there's going to be more money, Connecticut. Okay, any questions on that? Oh, we're at the end. So planning around having a child with special needs is really planning for 2 generations. We need to look at the legal side of things. What legal structure do we need to protect our child? We need to look at the financial picture. How much money is going to go there? What assets make sense to direct to the special needs trust? So it can get very complicated. You throw in the government benefits and it can be quite confusing and people do get paralysis and don't move forward with things. So you want to hit it again. I have a little inspirational quote here. Knowing is not enough, we must apply. Being willing is not enough, we must do. So I encourage everybody to take action, look at what you're doing for your child. And if anybody wants my help, the person with the 2 kids, that's my information. I would be happy to help in any way I can. I am a financial advisor. How I do earn a living is working with folks in the same thing that other financial advisors do, but that does not mean that you have to do business with me to talk to me. I would be happy to talk to anybody. If you want to come to my office in West Hartford, or I'd be happy to do a Zoom with you as well. So With that, that's the presentation. If there are any questions. Oh,
One. When you receive the funds, when an individual receives the funds, can you change that and have direct deposit into Able? Or do you have to receive the funds and then transfer the funds?
You can have SSI payments now direct deposited into an Able account.
In both. It'll go both ways. That's what
You
I'm saying.
can have money direct deposited. Like I said, my daughter's is a direct automatic. Every month, money comes out of her checking account.
Okay,
And the reason to be honest with you, the reason I set up an Able account for my daughter originally is I came home and there was uncashed paychecks and cash on the counter. I'm like, Kelsey, what is going on here? And she goes, Dad, I have too much money in my bank account. And I said, I know what we're gonna do. We're gonna set up an Able account and we're gonna automatically transfer money.
okay.
And she goes, sure, Dad, I don't know what you're talking about, whatever. To fast forward to the computer, a year later, I go, Kelsey, she was, I think at that time, putting $100 a month in. I said, Kelsey, you have $1,400 in your Able account. She goes, I do? And then she goes, wait, is that all? I said, you put $100 a month in and now it's worth $1,400. That's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
But she doesn't get that concept.
So
She-
basically SSI's money goes into the bank and then the withdrawal comes right from there into,
You can
Or
automatically.
or SSI now can be direct deposited. I don't know anybody that's doing it, but you can direct deposit SSI into,
Both the checking account and Able.
you can split the check.
I don't know if you can,
Split it.
I doubt Social Security is gonna say, you
Split it.
take half, no.
Okay, so
basically-
you have
So
to
it-
bring it in
Checking account.
first and then transfer it over.
Yeah, if you have a rep pay account, it's going into the rep pay, then you just do an ACH transfer
Right.
to Able is the easiest way to do that.
And after receipt, then automatically transfer. Okay.
Did you?
Yeah, I wanted to know, are you gonna give us a copy of all these slides? Because your information and stuff, your phone number and in the,
You can take a picture, if you, sorry for those people that aren't here. but
If you email it, well, we have it. We can email it if you're good with that.
yeah, and all those websites for the Ohio, the Connecticut and the Massachusetts.
Would all be in the slide presentation.
That's all in the
So,
slide
so
presentation.
I can just email it if you're good with that.
That's fine.
Okay. I can send it as a PDF.
I had one question also. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm
because
Joanne Foreman. And our daughter, and I'm not quite sure why, but it's made it a little easier. She is SSDI, even though all her friends are not. So we haven't been kind of stressed by the $1,800 limit. So I guess listening to what you're saying, I'm wondering whether this is appropriate for her. I mean, she's never going to reach $10,000, but we can put more in it. We don't have to worry about the 1,800, I guess. So we're not always spending down. So I don't know. Do you have clients that have SSDI and do this as well?
Joanne, are you Jeff's wife?
I am.
Yeah, I
He
know.
walked in and I said, do you know Stuart? He says, I know him very well.
That her daughter's on the SO5.
She's on SSDI
Yes.
because you guys, Jeff or you turned on your social security or she's worked. So my daughter's 100% SSDI off of her own work record. but-
Okay.
For folks who turn on continuously disabled prior to age 22, when mom or dad turn on their social security, the child receives social security off of a parent's work record. So that's totally different than SSI. It is
Right.
not disease tested. And if she works, she can be on the SO5 Med Connect, and they actually, many people don't know this either, but they just increased that to $20,000.
For SSDI?
No, for Med Connect, for a
Oh.
Medicaid for disabled, somebody. So like my daughter, because she works part-time, she could actually have $10,000, 20,000 now as of April 1st,
Oh.
right? In an account and not affect Medicaid. And SSDI is not means tested. You could have $1 million in a bank account. So the reason that an ABLE account might work for you is just the tax implications of being able to put money away and have it grow tax deferred. It's her account, et cetera, et
Right.
cetera.
Right. My other question, I'm assuming it's all insured? As if you're putting it into any bank or not?
No,
It's not.
no, it's an investment. So if
Okay.
you a bank in the ABLE account, the bank option, but then you're only getting, so
0.0%, yeah, right.
Not
Okay.
either third or I'm Kelsey's looking at the TV and I'm, Kelsey, this is affecting you too. She's like, what? Oh.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, any other questions?
I have another question. What happens to the ABLE money should the individual pass away?
That's a good question, and it's not completely clear how that does actually pass now. But the answer to your question is it doesn't go back to the state. How it gets where you want it to go, I don't know that that is totally
Because we've
clear
already
yet.
set up a funeral account for both Bob and Jer. And,
Well, you can pay for a funeral out of this, so
well, you pay for the funeral out of this, but you've already set up the accountant prepaid for the funeral. So that's all done.
then it's gonna go to their next of kin. And hopefully you're not around when that happens, right? So you don't want to be the next of kin.
Well, it's
So do you have to,
11 of us. So, yeah.
so the next of kin, okay.
Say it.
So you don't have to list next of kin, they just find out who the next of
Just,
kin is.
it's probably the rules of intestacy in the state of Connecticut, who gets what. There's no
$5.
parents, if there's no sibling and cousins and it just.
$1.47 for a DD coffee.
Yeah, but that's not totally clear yet since they changed that rule, how you can designate where money goes. It should be, but and be careful calling Kansas City because they're administering multiple states and all the rules are different. So they can be helpful, but not necessarily state specific.
And they're the ones we call for Connecticut.
No, Connecticut's got their own.
Yeah.
Connecticut has their own, but it's through Missouri, Kansas City.
That's just where it's
That's the-
administered from.
Right.
I don't know how it ended up there, but it's a consortium of states at all. See, I'm really happy about that. When Connecticut didn't come out with one, I'm like, I'm okay with that because you can use in other states. I personally don't want the state spending millions of dollars setting up an office to set up one of these things. And so Ohio, which was first, they have a bunch of states that just piled on with them. We were close to just doing something with Oregon, but that fell through. And then we did this.
Don't worry.
And none of those people at that meeting know any of that stuff.
No, we actually attended an ABLE roundtable with the treasurer.
Treasurer, yeah.
At the treasurer's office and several of his staff. So there's a lot of attention on ABLE accounts and really promoting and getting the word out about ABLE accounts. As a matter of fact, this, I believe, is Able to Save Month,
Yep.
if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
So it was actually very timely, very coincidental, but very timely that we had Stewart coming this month.
I didn't even
So-
know. This is Able to Save Month, huh?
Yeah, Able to Save Month, this month, is April. And so, we were fortunate enough to sit in a room with a lot of other people, in the disability sector just at large. So there was someone from Disabilities Rights Connecticut, there was someone from Connecticut Silk, there was someone from a number of different organizations, and we kind of all talked about, and Josh was there as well. We all talked about kind of what we know about ABLE accounts, what people don't know about ABLE accounts, really how to get the word out. So that was, and then, of course, we did our survey, which all of you said, yeah, I'd like to know more about ABLE accounts. So, so that's how we ended up here. But, it's a continued conversation, and it's something that's gonna continue to be looked at. And so hopefully they'll make some clarity to
Yeah.
what happens in the event
Yeah.
that someone passes.
A lot of those didn't, I don't know if you saw that. They didn't know what I was
No, they
talking
did
about.
not. No.
Which is pretty scary and shocking. They handled it really well. But-
Yeah. Eric,
The treasurer,
I'm.
very sharp guy, nice
Yeah,
guy.
Great guy.
But by the way, I wasn't there as Futures Planned, a financial advisor that does this work. I was there as the chairman of the board of Planned Connecticut. I just happen to know more about ABLE accounts than I think anybody else there. And,
It was a good
I
session.
read the law. Kind of boring, but.
Thank you for doing that.
So hopefully we can get some clarity by kind of pushing those avenues and talking with that same group of people about, how we can make sure there's clarity and just in general, and just
It's-
clarity of how to set one up, where to
Yeah.
go, and
Yeah, the setting up is not hard. It's just that I did it personally for my daughter, and I also did it for a friend of mine, my neighbor whose brother, and they had, not to get too complicated, but they had a first party special needs trust where there is payback. And it's a little trick. Take money out of the first party special needs trust where there is Medicaid payback and transfer it into the ABLE account over years. There is no payback. So I sat there and did it online with them, and it took more than 15 because his social security number, and so they had to go get all this information, but it was pretty easy to do because you don't have to, like I said, upload anything. You don't have to prove anything. You just better be able to prove it. And I don't think anybody associated with this world is going to have a problem with that. And some people, I don't agree philosophically with this, but there are folks that, because they're in a wheelchair, they're disabled, even though they make $150,000 a year as a computer programmer, and they can set one of these up. I don't think Congress intended it for that purpose. But there is they don't look at income and say, you don't qualify because your income is so high. But I don't think they thought that through. And ABLE National Resource will show people, working and having these accounts. And again, I don't think most of the Congress, especially on the Republican side, would have said, oh yeah, somebody is making $250,000 a year. Why shouldn't they have an ABLE account and have another tax
Tax write-off.
tax-free savings?
So can you just clarify, so this is something that needs to be done by a family, right? Like it can't be done by an agency on behalf of the, as,
If you are not rep payee, but if you're,
if you're like a conservator
yes,
or,
your
okay.
guardian, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to
But
clarify
that doesn't
that.
mean that you can't be sitting there with the individual.
Correct, right. We could help to guide the individual and the family,
Push that
but
button, push that button.
ultimately, it's not our, as
No, you
the
can't just go,
organization, that's the
yeah,
rep
no.
payee.
No,
We're not responsible for managing the funds. We're not,
right. And
doing
I don't know that
anything
you
with it.
really want to.
we don't, that's,
So you have
I'm
to
just
be,
clarifying because we've been asked that question.
Yeah.
Correct, Ashley, so I was just more clarifying.
You can
for
point
families.
them in the right direction. You
Yeah.
can tell them to call me.
Perfect.
You don't have to be a
Yeah.
family member to be a.
Yeah, I
guardian.
just want to make sure that, to.
But I will tell you that it's not just about able, and if somebody calls me, I'm gonna ask them if they have a special needs trust, how are they funding, da, 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 da. That is what I do.
Yeah.
Right.
Right,
It's just saying, yeah, set up an able account in the absence of any other information is not great advice.
yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's simple enough to set up, right? Online, you just go to the site and you can just set it right up and
Mhm.
fund it electronically or with a check.
For going back again, it has to be assigned by the court, power of attorney, guardianship,
The
conservatorship.
individual is getting SSI or SSDI, they're automatically eligible. If you're sitting there as a parent or sibling, it goes, what would you say?
guardian.
A guardian.
If you're a guardian, all of those things are,
Okay,
you're just checking off that, yeah, I'm guardian for this individual.
So for an adult, would the family member have to be a guardian or, I mean, they could also, if the person's their own guardian,
They're
correct? So that's an option as well.
Parent, yeah.
So even if someone is an adult, as long as you're a parent, a
Mhm.
grandmother, a sibling, it doesn't matter if you're
Grandmother
a
doesn't,
guardian?
no, grandmother doesn't, is not listed. It's,
Okay.
I don't remember, but yeah, it starts and it goes down. If this, then,
Okay,
but, the catch-all is if the individual's sitting there, they're doing it themselves. Even
right.
you might be saying, hey, well, why don't you do this? But they're setting it up themselves. But if somebody is in California and you're sitting here setting it up and you're not one of those, and again, nobody's going back and saying, okay, prove all of this. It's pretty liberal in terms of establishing one of these things.
Do you feel as though at some point that this will, as they become more popular, that it'll be something that may get audited at some point, just from your viewpoint?
Yeah, but if it were audited, as long as you're not buying the fur coat for your mother, where did you spend this money? Okay, I went on vacation. Well, that they're not saying, well, that was an expensive vacation. I had to bring my guardian with me because I need assistance. I needed a new computer, a new gaming console, as long as it's for the individual.
for the individual.
I don't know that I'd be buying Christmas presents and things like that. But yeah,
Did I just?
and I think
hear
the
that?
IRS has more to do than audit able accounts to find out that. So the answer to your question is I don't really see it.
So just to, in my mind, did I hear that correctly? If I were taking my brother to Disney, he could pay for my
Mhm.
trip?
As the,
Well, not that I
the
live, but-
immediate guardian.
Yeah, because he can't go,
No.
He
can't go
by
without
himself.
you. So he's not going. So you're going not because you want to go to Disney, you're doing it for his benefit.
So if I were to, I just recently heard that there are some organizations in Connecticut that, that provide, weekend trips and stuff like that to people with disabilities. And if he needed a one-to-one to go with him, he could pay that extra for the one-to-one to go with him from that organ.
Yeah,
The
well, they
organization,
would
right.
just charge the amount necessary for the
Charge more,
services
so he
he
could pay for
would
the-
need.
Yeah, those
Yeah,
funds.
there's Trips R Us is one, and I don't know other,
Trips.
There's,
I think
there's
is what I
several
looked
bright
at.
days or something like that. There's a couple of them out there.
And then, so if they have a guard, if they have a conservator, but they have a sibling, either one of those people can start the ABLE account?
no, I think I
So
think
it's
it's
like a hierarchy.
listed in the hierarchy. As my understanding is it's a hierarchy. If not this, then this, then this, then this, then
Okay.
this.
And that
You
information.
know,
is
and
on-
that is on, you know, you can go on the site and
Get those questions.
get that specific kind of question answered.
Okay.
But I believe it's a hierarchy.
There is flexibility.
Any other questions out there in Zoom world?
No,
Thank you, though. Thank you for
Stuart?
this. Yeah.
Stuart, does the
Yes.
money have to be the individuals or could like parents fund?
Oh, no, absolutely. Parents can
Anyone
fund.
can put into it.
Okay,
And if parents fund, they'd get a state income tax deduction of 5,000 individual or 10,000 joint. State, not federal.
mm-hmm, okay,
Yeah. it
Thank
could
you.
be Parents, it could be parents. It's just, I personally am not putting money in my daughter's ABLE account. My money goes to other financial instruments that will, AKA life insurance, that will fund her trust upon my wife and my passing. So that's where I spend my money. So,
But if
and not to
friends
mention
wanted-
that I pay for everything else too.
money, they could put that money into the,
Yes. Up to the $19,000, and you need to be conscious of that.
per year.
Yeah, I just had I had a client who, this is an interesting story. Divorced and dad is not really on board, even though he's a DDS client, higher functioning, just under the, you know, just thinks his son should, you know, pull himself up by the bootstrap kind of thing. And when he applied for his own Social Security retirement, they asked, do you have a disabled child? I said, no. And so I said to Mom, you should call and find out if he turned it on, because he had turned it, you know, a little early. And she did, and he got a $26,000 back. Okay. To deal with $26,000, boom, there goes, at that point, 18 or 17 into the ABLE account. And now, this is how I learned about Med Connect, because this information isn't really out there. And I live this. Dad just canceled a 529 college savings plan he had and sent him the money. Another $36,000. It's like, well, Stuart, what am I supposed to do? I'm like, well, do you guys need to go on vacation? I gave her Trips R Us. She goes, well, he would love to go to Disney World, but I don't want to go to Disney World. Well, send him with somebody else. You guys need to separate anyway. And she goes, that's a good idea. Could we go? I'm like, yes, if he can't go on his own, then you could use that money and say, I'm taking him. But then I said, is he on Med Connect? Because he works part-time. She goes, well, I don't know. Wait a minute. I think I just got an email. This was just in March. And she sends me the email from the state. That's how I learned Med Connect went to April 1st, it goes to $20,000. Boom, problem solved. Funded ABLE this year, he's allowed to have $20,000. So that doesn't apply to, everybody in our world, but there's a lot of people out there that work and accumulate money that are in the disability community. And it can be a problem. I have somebody who I consult with. She has she's in a wheelchair. She has some kind of muscular dystrophy, but she's a graphic artist, and you can make 75,000. Now it's 85,000. But she has a PCA, personal care assistant waiver through DSS. She needs somebody to come in and get her out of bed, into her chair, bathe, and then at night, the same thing. And she's constantly worried about making too much money and having too many assets. And so I was able to tell her, she didn't know either. A bunch of
Yeah.
attorneys I sent to didn't know this.
And so that program allows someone to stay Medicaid eligible. It allows
Medicaid
them
eligible.
to
Yes.
continue kinds of things when they are working. And usually what happens in that case is that the person will have some sort of, based on their income, some sort of deductible that they will pay into.
Yeah, it's a
into
sliding
Medicaid.
scale depending on.
Yeah,
on the
exactly.
money they make.
Right, right.
That's MedConnect.
It allows people who are working to stay eligible, particularly for the DDS services, the PCA waiver, any of those kinds of services that are under the Medicaid waivers.
I don't think Bob and Jer.
Yeah,
are getting
I
paid
think- I
that
don't
high
think-
from yard.
There were.
They're not getting that much money from yard goats.
They make $3,500 a year. That's about it.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions out there in Zoom land or whatever we're on? I call it.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining.
Interesting.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
so
you so
much.
Thank you,
much.
Stuart.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much.
Right.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Stu. Thank you, Marion, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.